Prince Harry stands tall at a military event, his eyes scanning the crowd. A somber expression rests on his face, but there's a flicker of warmth as he nods at the soldiers lined up before him. The air is thick with emotion. He's been to many of these ceremonies before, but this one feels different. Prince Harry has always had a deep connection with the military, but no one expected what was about to happen next. A mother clutches a framed photograph of her son, young, proud, in uniform. Her hands tremble slightly as she looks toward the prince. Beside her, a small boy, no older than 6, holds her hand. He watches Harry with wide eyes, as if trying to understand the weight of the moment. Harry notices them. His jaw tightens. His step slow. Something in his face changes. This isn't just another event. Stay till the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Prince Harry has never been just another royal. Long before stepping away from his official duties, he built a reputation as the soldier prince. Unlike most royals, he didn't just shake hands with the military, he was one of them. He served 2 tours in Afghanistan, flew Apache helicopters, and stood shoulder to shoulder with his fellow soldiers. He understood their struggles, their sacrifices, and the weight of loss. That's why this event mattered to him. This was no ordinary ceremony. Today, the country was honoring fallen soldiers, men and women who gave everything for their nation. Families had gathered to pay tribute, holding on to memories, photographs, and medals. Among them was Sarah Thompson, a grieving mother, and her young son, Noah. Sarah's husband, Sergeant James Thompson, had been a decorated soldier, known for his bravery and loyalty. He had been killed in action a year ago. This was their first time attending an event like this without him. As Harry stood at the podium, his speech prepared, his eyes kept drifting back to them, the little boy holding his mother's hand, the framed picture of a hero gone too soon. Prince Harry cleared his throat, ready to begin his speech, but his mind wasn't fully on the words in front of him. His eyes flickered back to the little boy. Noah stood quietly beside his mother, his tiny fingers gripping the photograph of his father. As Harry spoke about bravery, sacrifice, and duty, his voice remained steady, but his expression softened. He had met countless military families before, but something about this moment pulled at him. Sarah wiped a tear from her cheek as she listened. Her son, too young to fully grasp the weight of the ceremony, only understood one thing. His father was a hero. Then, as if drawn by instinct, Prince Harry stepped down from the podium after his speech and walked toward them. The crowd hushed, watching as he approached. Noah, still holding the photo, looked up at him. There was no fear, no hesitation, just curiosity. Harry knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's level. "That's your dad, isn't it?" His voice was warm, gentle. Noah nodded. "He's a soldier, like you were." Harry's breath hitched for a second. He glanced at Sarah, who gave a small, tearful smile. "Yes," Harry finally said, nodding. "Just like me. And he was a great one, wasn't he?" Noah's tiny fingers traced the edge of the photo. "Mom says he's a hero." Harry swallowed hard. His own past, his own loss, suddenly felt so much closer. He had been just a boy when he lost his mother. He knew what it felt like to grieve someone the world talked about, but no one could bring back. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at Noah, really looked at him. And then, in a move that shocked the crowd, he reached out and placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder. For a few seconds, there was silence. A deep, heavy kind of silence that carried more emotion than words ever could. Then, Noah did something no one expected. He lifted his hand and gave Prince Harry a salute. The crowd gasped softly. Some wiped their eyes. Sarah let out a shaky breath, squeezing her son's shoulder. Harry's lips parted slightly, his composure wavering. He returned the salute, but there was something deeper in his eyes, something raw. He wasn't just honoring a little boy's gesture. He was seeing himself in Noah, a child who lost someone the world admired, a child who had to carry grief too heavy for his small shoulders. "You know," Harry said, his voice quieter now, "your dad would be so proud of you." Noah blinked up at him. "Really? Really?" Harry nodded. "And I know that because I've met some of the bravest soldiers in the world. And they don't just fight battles. They take care of their families. They love them more than anything." He looked at Sarah, then back at Noah. "And they never really leave." Sarah wiped another tear away, whispering, "Thank you." Harry exhaled softly, then did something even more unexpected. He opened his arms. Noah hesitated for just a second before stepping forward and wrapping his small arms around the prince. It was a moment that sent chills through the crowd. Cameras clicked, but this wasn't about publicity. It wasn't about the royal family or the media. It was just a man, a soldier, comforting a little boy who missed his father. And as Harry hugged him, his own grief lingered just beneath the surface. Because, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just remembering his mother. He was remembering the little boy he used to be as Noah pulled away. Harry rested a hand on his shoulder, giving it a light squeeze before standing up. The air was thick with emotion. People weren't just watching a royal figure. They were witnessing something deeply human. Sarah bent down and kissed the top of her son's head, whispering something only he could hear. He nodded and held on to her hand, as they both looked up at Harry with gratitude that words couldn't express. The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. People were no longer just listening to speeches or watching from a distance. They had felt something real. Within hours, the moment went viral. News outlets, social media, and even those who had never followed the royal family were talking about it. Prince Harry's emotional moment with a fallen soldier's son will bring you to tears. Clips spread across platforms, racking up millions of views. People shared their own stories. Military families, children who had lost parents, veterans who understood the weight of sacrifice. One tweet stood out. This wasn't a royal moment. It was a soldier's moment, a fatherless boy's moment, a moment of pure humanity. Interviews followed. Military officials praised Harry's deep connection to service members. Veterans reflected on how rare it was for someone in his position to truly understand. Even those who had been critical of him in the past admitted, this was different, this was real. But for Harry, it was never about the cameras or the headlines. It was about a little boy, a grieving mother, and the memory of a hero who had given everything. And maybe, just maybe, it was about healing a small part of himself 2 days past. But the moment between Prince Harry and Noah lingered in people's hearts. It wasn't just another viral clip. It was a reminder of something deeper. For Sarah, the encounter gave her strength. She had spent months feeling like she was carrying the weight of grief alone. But in that single moment, when Prince Harry knelt beside her son, she realized something: she wasn't alone. For Noah, it was the day he learned his father's memory wasn't just to hold. The world honored him, respected him, and remembered his sacrifice. And for a 6-year-old boy, that meant everything. As for Harry, he never spoke much about that day. He didn't need to. His actions had said enough. But those who knew him best saw the difference. At his next military event, he carried himself just a little differently. His words felt even more personal. And when he met another grieving child, another young heart trying to understand loss, he didn't hesitate. He knelt down, looked them in the eye, and reminded them, they never really leave. Because for all the titles, for all the controversies, and for all the noise surrounding his life, one thing remained clear. Prince Harry would always be a soldier first. And on that day, in that embrace, he wasn't just a prince. He was a brother in arms. A man who understood. A man who had once been a grieving boy himself. What happened next would stay with everyone who witnessed it. Something about this family, about this child, was about to touch him in a way no one expected.